A quiet morning settles over Microsoft's Redmond campus in 1999. Inside a windowless conference room, fluorescent lights buzz above a battered whiteboard scarred with half-erased words. C-like, cool, new, V, B, and one circled shape that shouldn't matter, yet C, sharp. The markers bleed, the air feels stale, and a small team stares at the board as if it holds their future. You know this language. You've built things with it, trusted it, broken it, shipped entire systems on its shoulders. But beneath that familiarity lies a story you were never meant to hear. A story of rivals and rebels, of quiet betrayals and corporate survival. Every Unity game you've launched, every bank transfer you've initiated, every cloud-powered AI request you've triggered, whispers the same hidden truth. C# emerged from a political knife fight, not a spark of creative freedom. It isn't just a programming language. It's a struggle for control over who defines the future of software. This is the real story of C#. Chapter 1. The Spark in the Walls. Anders Heilsberg's Quiet Rebellion. Have you ever wondered what pushes a brilliant engineer to abandon everything he built? What forces someone to leave a legacy behind and start over inside a rival empire? Rewind to 1997. Inside Borland's modest California campus, Anders Heilsberg sits alone in a cramped office buried under compiler diagrams and handwritten type system notes. Soft-spoken, Danish, meticulous, he carries the calm intensity of someone who sees structure where others see noise. Turbo Pascal made him a legend. $49.95 in 1983. A revolution disguised as shrink-wrap software. But Borland now hemorrhages cash. The walls feel thinner every month. Java rises like a tidal wave. Bill Joy dismisses native Windows languages as a dying world during a hallway exchange in 1995. A moment that stings more than Anders admits. He realizes developers need something safer than C++, more powerful than Visual Basic, something Windows desperately lacks. Borland can't fund that vision. Microsoft can. They offer him a $1.5 million package and the chance to build a modern language from scratch. Anders accepts. He thinks he's chasing innovation. He doesn't realize he's stepping into a secret war, one already burning inside Redmond's walls. Chapter 2. The Java Crisis. Microsoft declares a silent war. Java doesn't just threaten Microsoft. It terrifies them. In 1997, that single language endangers an $8 billion Windows empire. And almost no one outside the company realizes how close everything comes to collapse. A courtroom in San Jose buzzes with tension as Sun Microsystems sues Microsoft for breaking Java's rules. Scott McNeely strides in, brash, loud, convinced he's defending the open future. Across the country, Steve Ballmer rages in executive meetings, furious that Microsoft depends on a platform it can't control. Bill Gates studies internal memos predicting a world where Windows fades into irrelevance, replaced by the JVMN operating system hiding inside another. Write once, run anywhere? Sounds harmless. But to Microsoft, it functions like a Trojan horse. If developers target the JVM, they no longer need Windows. They no longer need Microsoft. Sun wins the lawsuit. Microsoft gets banned from extending Java. Overnight, the company loses its only weapon. They need a replacement fast. Something familiar enough to lure developers. Something legally distinct enough to avoid another lawsuit. And in a quiet corner of Redmond, Anders Heilsberg begins sketching exactly that. But what he designs next pushes the conflict into far more dangerous territory. Chapter 3. Project Cool. The secret language no one was allowed to talk about. A dimly lit Microsoft lab hums softly in late 1998. Fluorescent tubes flicker above rows of prototype machines, and on a lone whiteboard sits a code name whispered only behind closed doors. Cool. The room smells like cold coffee and hot circuitry, the scent of a project that shouldn't exist. Anders Heilsberg leads the charge now, calm but relentless. Scott Wiltemuth challenges every assumption, his notebook crowded with questions. Peter Goldie, the precision-obsessed compiler engineer, practically lives under his desk, chasing the perfect instruction path. Their mission feels impossible. Create Java, but legal. Build a managed, safe, modern language without mimicking Sun too closely. Garbage collection becomes a metaphorical room that cleans itself. Type safety turns into a contract between strangers. JIT compilation becomes an engine tuning itself mid-flight. One night at 2 a.m., Anders and Scott argue over operator overloading. Scott fears chaos. Anders pushes back hard. Power isn't danger, he insists. Power is clarity understood. Every keyword gets scrutinized by Microsoft Legal. Every similarity to Java invites another lawsuit. Every decision tightens the noose. And then, without warning, someone leaks the project's existence. What happens next forces Microsoft to reveal everything far sooner than planned. Chapter 4: Betrayal and Revelation. The leak that changed everything. A journalist's phone rings before sunrise. No greeting, no preamble, just a single sentence delivered in a strained whisper. Microsoft is building a Java killer. The line goes dead. The tension doesn't. Mary Jo Foley sits up in bed, replaying the words. She recognizes the stakes immediately. Inside Microsoft, executives scramble as the Register publishes the leak. Paul Maritz, normally composed, suddenly fields questions he can't answer. Project Cool, once hidden in basements and badge-restricted hallways, erupts into the open. The leak detonates timelines. Naming committees collapse into panic. What was cool transforms into C#, a name chosen fast, spoken faster, whispered internally as C++, but incremented. And then Steve Ballmer storms into a meeting, slams a binder so hard it echoes through the floor, and declares,
"We ship next year. I don't care how."
But a language isn't enough. To ship, they must construct an entire universe, the dotnet framework. Hundreds of APAs, thousands of pages of documentation, a budget of $500 million ignites the race. Yet when they finally reveal C# to the world, the reaction blindsides them. A different storm waits outside Redmond's walls. Chapter 5. The world laughs, the industry mocks. C#. C# debuts to laughter. Not applause, not outrage, laughter. In 2000, the global developer community looks at Microsoft's new language and sees nothing but imitation dressed in corporate gloss. At the Los Angeles PDC, the air feels thin as Anders Heilsberg walks on stage. The slides shimmer. The pitch lands. The applause barely rises above polite. James Gosling dismisses C# as imitation without understanding. Linus Torvalds mocks .NET as a leash designed to pull developers deeper into Microsoft's orbit. Even inside Redmond, some teams refuse to touch it, convinced it will collapse under its own ambition. The core conflict sharpens. C# rides on the brand new CLR, a planned and tightly controlled city, while Java's JVM evolves like a messy, sprawling metropolis. One promises order, the other promises freedom. Developers pick freedom. And then something unexpected happens. Miguel de Icaza, brilliant, rebellious, impossible to intimidate, studies the C# spec and sees beauty others ignore. In 2001, he launches Mono, an open-source, cross-platform clone of .NET. Microsoft leadership hates it. Anders secretly loves it. Someone inside Microsoft calls Mono a lawsuit waiting to happen. But in reality, it becomes the spark that transforms everything. Chapter 6. Reinvention through Rebellion. The Open Source Mutiny. 70% of Microsoft's cloud revenue in 2014 depends on developers, yet fewer than 20% trust the company's closed-source tools. Those numbers terrify leadership. They ignite a pivot no one sees coming. A small office in Boston buzzes with reporters as Satya Nadella steps onto a stage and announces 3 words that detonate decades of Microsoft culture. Microsoft loves Linux. The phrase shocks the industry, but inside Redmond, it signals something deeper. Survival beats pride. Anders Heilsberg, now older, calmer, more reflective, watches the shift unfold. He never imagined C# escaping Microsoft's walls. Yet the future demands it. Azure needs cross-platform adoption. Enterprises demand transparency. Developers demand trust. Then Miguel de Icaza re-enters the story. The renegade who built Mono without permission suddenly becomes essential. His work proves C# can thrive outside Windows. His persistence forces Microsoft's hand. What was once a rogue project turns into the foundation for .NET Core, an open-source, cross-platform rebirth. C# transforms again, not by decree, but by necessity. Not to defeat Java, but to survive the cloud. And just as the language regains its footing, an unexpected army accelerates its rise into an entirely new world. Chapter 7. The Unity Effect. The game engine that resurrected C#. Joachim Ante sits hunched over a battered workstation in Copenhagen in 2004, eyes locked on a prototype engine that barely runs. Quiet, analytical, obsessed with efficiency, he searches for a scripting language that won't collapse under the weight of real-time physics. David Helgeson, the dreamer beside him, pushes for accessibility, for reach, for a tool anyone could learn. They gamble on C# not because it's trendy, but because it feels precise, expressive, safe. That choice detonates everything. Unity explodes across continents. A teenager in Brazil stitches together a platformer on a 5-year-old laptop. An artist in Seoul builds a VR demo that shocks investors. A small team in Auckland prototypes a city builder that evolves into cities' skylines. Their scripts? Always C#. Simple enough for beginners, powerful enough for professionals, fast enough to ship. The numbers surge. 70% of mobile games. 5 million Unity developers. Half of all VR apps. C# becomes the secret backbone of an entire generation of creators. And just as Unity reaches critical mass, another revolution arrives, one that pulls C# into the heart of modern infrastructure and the rising world of AI. The stakes climb again. Chapter 8. C# in the Age of AI. The quiet infrastructure powerhouse. Unity turns C# into a creative engine for millions. But behind that explosion sits a deeper truth. The language quietly powers the machinery of modern AI, a world far from game loops and physics ticks. Fast forward to a 2023 Azure data center outside Quincy, Washington. Rows of humming servers stretch into the dark like a steel cathedral. Beneath the cooling fans and blinking LEDs, C# orchestrates workflows that keep the modern internet alive. GitHub Copilot requests flow through dotnet services that process millions of operations per hour. Microsoft Teams depends on C# microservices to serve 300 million users. Even OpenAI's own Azure integrations rely on C# pipelines to route prompts, logs, and model outputs across clusters. The language evolves at breakneck speed to keep up. Span types slice memory overhead to the bone. Source generators reshape compile-time behavior. Pattern matching turns business logic into something almost poetic. C# grows sharper, faster, more expressive. And in this world, failure isn't an inconvenience. It's billions lost. Outages across continents. Entire systems grinding to dust. What began as a defensive weapon now becomes the nervous system of global computation. But its story isn't finished. Its greatest test arrives next. Chapter 9. The language that refused to die. From a whiteboard in Redmond to the humming aisles of Azure data centers, C# travels a path no one planned. It begins as a corporate defense mechanism, survives a public mocking, reinvents itself in open source, and rises again through the hands of millions of game developers. What started as a reaction becomes a revolution. In 2025, Unity pushes dots into full production. Suddenly, C#-based ECS systems rival the raw speed of C++ in benchmarks that ripple through GDC. Studios in Montreal, Kyoto, and Stockholm rewrite entire pipelines.